Hello, boys and girls. Tsufit here. We are back with the 7th part of Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called Is This Thing On? And this is part 7 of part 7 of Chapter 4 of Step into the Spotlight, a guide to getting noticed. You can get your own copy. Just check out the show notes. It'll tell you how to get one copy, how to get a case of 20. And today we are continuing. Life is my best inspiration. Here's an infomercial that took me less time to write than it does to say. My third daughter, Riviera, had just come home from school with the wildly exciting news that she had won the public speaking contest at school. Now, this was more exciting than you can imagine for reasons you're about to find out. After spending 5 minutes rejoicing with her, I secured her permission and the permission of her sisters to write the following networking infomercial, which made its debut at a seminar I was giving just an hour later. Here we go. 4 years ago, my youngest daughter, Aviva, won the public speaking contest in her school. 3 years ago, my eldest daughter, Daniela, won the public speaking contest in her school. 2 years ago, my second daughter, Paloma, won this public speaking contest in her school. And yesterday, my last remaining daughter, Riviera, won the public speaking contest in her school. I'm Tsufit to follow that dream. I'm a public speaking coach. Now, far be it from me to exploit my daughter's accomplishments for my own personal gain. But I think the facts speak for themselves. Tsufit, for when you're ready to get noticed. Now, I do feel a bit guilty about the insinuation in that last one because my kids, the infomercial is done. I'm just telling you guys, my kids definitely deserve 100% of the kudos for their accomplishments. But it does make a compelling story, and it's a completely true story in terms of the fact that they all four won. So that's how you do it, folks. That's how you do it, on the spot. Recently, I attended a business networking event. By the way, I forgot to tell you, I'm starting on page 142. So we are on chapter 4, section 7th part, and I started on page 142 in case you're following along in your own personal copy. Recently, I attended a business networking event with an infomercial all planned, and then they threw us for a loop. They told us to pair up and introduce the other person to the crowd. Talk about pressure. Little Miss, I coach on infomercials, had to speak without a script. Reminds me of those days when I was in a math exam and I hadn't attended the course all year. It was actually just in my dreams because I had. We were all given 1 minute to find out about the other person and then write an intro. And I used my minute wisely, skipping all the small talk and jumping straight to the heart of it. What she wanted to be when she was a kid, her hobbies, and what aspect of her business she wanted to promote that day. So even with the clock ticking, I managed to extract enough color to whip up something clever and hang on to my title. In show business, performers have to be ready for anything that's thrown at them. And with a little practice, you will be ready when the curtain rises. Be provocative, be a contrarian. It always gets noticed. I've seen competitors have a friendly tussle playing off against each other in infomercials, and the result is we all remember both of them better. When F.W. Woolworths opened his first store, I'm quoting here from Peter Hay, the Book of Business Anecdotes. When F.W. Woolworth opened his first store, a merchant on the same street tried to fight with the new competition. He hung out a sign saying, "Doing business in this same spot for over 50 years. The next day, Woolworth also put out a sign. It says, "Established a week ago, no old stock." I mean, it's just like the hairdresser one. It's so clever. Must have learned it from my friend Diane. And don't forget the two hats prohibition from chapter 3. Choose one thing and only one thing to focus on in the infomercial. The one reason that I remember the groaning board out of the hundreds of restaurants that I've been in Toronto, other than the fact that they had this amazing cheesecake and their amazing rice pilaf, but the attraction was the screening of these award-winning commercials. I wish they were still around. It was such a cool thing they did. I've had many clients who answered my "why you" question with responses like, "because we make the best brownies." Clearly, they would fail the quiz in chapter 1 because, as we established, being great at what you do is just not enough. It just isn't. So how do we do it? What do we do if you can't even find your own story? Well, one thing to do if you can't find your own story is adopt a story. Not all the stories you tell have to be your own. If you're a financial advisor, let's say, who specializes in helping older people launch businesses after retirement, you could tell the stories of entrepreneurial late bloomers like Julia Child, Mary Kay Ash, Ray Kroc, Colonel Sanders, and that would inspire your audience, right? Chicken Soup for the Soul grew a whole series, Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, from telling other people's stories. In fact, they let the other people tell their own stories. And because the audiences loved the stories so much, the pair collected them into a best-selling series, and they got the credit for that. Or just make some up, right? General Motors in Europe launched a fabulous series of car commercials for the Opel car. One of the commercials shows a patient asking her doctor whether her sex change surgery could be reversed after only 3 days as a woman. Another spot shows a groom carrying his bride over what we think is the threshold, but in fact he's returning her to her father's house because he changed his mind after only 3 days of marriage. This series of commercials with humor and creativity shows the benefit of getting a 3-day test drive. That was the punchline, the 3 days. Great stories, one message, humor, color, visuals. That's how it's done. Whether you tell your story or you adopt one or you make one up, make sure there's lots of you in it, even if you make it up, right? Even if it's somebody else's. I tell my clients, like I told you before, if that speech could have been coming from anybody else's mouth but yours, don't be saying it. Make it come alive. If you want your show to be on the air and stay there, you can't just be the narrator. You have to be part of the story. Remember, it is a show. So take the time to build yourself a blockbuster script. The art of schmooze. How to work the room. If you learned anything from show business, and if you want to learn anything from show business, learn how to work the room. Entertainers do it naturally. The independent music scene in Toronto had a networking event. I don't know if it's still around, but they had a networking event. It was called the Big Schmooze, right? There are business networking events everywhere for every purpose, right? Beyond the chambers of commerce, there are women's networking events, there are gay networking events, there are home-based business networking events, there are Christian networking events and Jewish networking events and referral-based networking events and trade association networking events. And all of them have a business focus, so don't make a mistake of being too discerning. And by the way, I spoke at a Chinese networking event, I attended a Black networking event, and it's really, really interesting, all these little pockets that exist. Don't make the mistake of being too discerning at first. Just try them all out, see which ones are productive for you, and focus on getting good at working the room. Don't talk to strangers. When my kids were little, like any good mom, I taught them don't talk to strangers. I even bought them the Berenstain Bears Learn About Strangers book and some videos in case they didn't believe me. But as networking expert Susan Rowan says, this makes sense for kids, but not so much for entrepreneurs. Stars need fans. And the more fans, the bigger the star. How are you going to get fans if you refuse to talk to strangers? A star is someone who makes everyone feel comfortable, everyone in the room, someone who will speak to anyone, regardless of how important that person appears to be or doesn't appear to be. Somebody who stands out for this is Patty Lovett-Reed. She was wonderful. She was actually the keynote speaker at an event, and before the event she came up to everybody, stuck out her hand and said, "Hi, I'm Patty." And actually that "Hi, I'm Patty" resulted in me appearing on her national TV show, just because I told her my story for a few seconds. She said, "I'm going to have my producer call you." She called, ended up 15-minute spot, national TV show, friends for years. I'm still friends with her to this day. And it's all because of her, not because of me, because she walked up and she was friendly with everyone, regardless of how important she was in that room. Everyone you haven't met yet is a stranger. I've learned to walk into a room like everyone there is already a friend. After a few years of applause, you learn to trust that the audience will like you. So why wait? I walk into a room like I'm walking on stage. Don't play with matches and other stuff my mother told me. It's a risky business. They might not like me, right? And my mom did teach me, don't play with matches. And how else are you going to light a fire, though? Don't be too polite. Rude is no better than politeness. They're both off-putting, right? Overly polite. Don't be politically correct. It can be a barrier to intimacy, to connection. Now, that said, I've experienced the opposite. I met a woman who let the details of her trials and tribulations dominate the first 5 minutes of our encounter, to the point that I even ran for the hills. Too much, too soon, who asked you, right? Another risk is appearing slimy or sleazy, or like you're kind of on the make, on the take. Fan collecting is an art. Fans don't want to feel like they're being collected. They have to feel like they've had a genuine connection with you. So don't be too slick. Just be real and warm and outgoing, and your natural charisma will emerge. You can't just spout out your canned 30 seconds either. Now, I cannot tell you how many times I've been at a business networking event and made the mistake of asking someone what he did for a living. Out comes this overly scripted, overly selling, canned 30 seconds that was intended for an audience of 100 people, but I get it one-on-one. It's just plain weird. It's creepy. That's an understatement. A recitation of the whole 30-second infomercial sounds robotic if you deliver it one-on-one. You don't want to sound like an automaton. Use some ideas from your infomercial, but tone it down and be real and be conversational. I mean, you should be conversational if you're talking to 100 people too, but leave room for a response from the person that you're speaking with. In a one-on-one encounter, the main objective is not to communicate information. Actually, it's not the main intent in a group either, but in a one-on-one, it's mainly just to connect. The same is true when addressing a crowd, but a one-on-one, it's totally, it's paramount. The old play the host principle works really, really, really well, because many of the people in a given room are nervous and uncomfortable talking to strangers. I go to events that I've never been to before, and I walk in like I own the room, like I'm the host. I put on the event, and I start welcoming people, and you know what? It totally works. The initial connections that you make with people in the room doesn't have to be a business connection, and it's probably better if it isn't, right? Let people see the real person first. It will strengthen your relationship to the point that it sometimes, not always, moves naturally into a business arena. Now, that said, my comment at the beginning of this chapter about clients hiring me after a 30-second exposure stands, right? It happened all the time. It happened the day that I wrote this page. And often, like that morning, there was a lineup to speak to me, and I wasn't the speaker. You had a speaker giving a 30-minute presentation. I gave my 30 seconds, and I'm the one who had the lineup. Now, if you've created a strong, well-defined persona and understand what you have to offer people, it doesn't have to take so long. I've spent many pages focusing on what to say and how to say it. But if you want a PhD in schmooze, you'll have to master the fine art of listening. Yes, I said it. Listening. Be a sparkling conversationalist. Dale Carnegie used to tell this story. When he attended this society event, and he was introduced to one of the socialites, and she says to him, "You're Dale Carnegie. I have heard so much about you." And Carnegie responds, "And I heard that you just came back from a trip to Europe." And then the woman yaps for half an hour about her trip to Europe, right? And at the end, the society papers, the next day, the society papers quote this woman as saying, "I met Dale Carnegie last night, and he is a sparkling conversationalist." The guy never said a word, right? He let her be the star. And the result was he got another member of his own fan club. There are entire books devoted to the subject of one-on-one business networking. One of the best ones is Susan Rowan's, the woman I mentioned before, How to Work a Room. But here's the bottom line. Focus on attracting and then on making a real connection with those with whom you attract. Those whom you attract. There's no with. Don't come with clipboards to sign people up for a free introductory coaching session. I wish I was making this up, but there was a woman doing that. Don't wear your cell phone on a cord around your neck, and just walk in with a big smile and be open. Be the best version of you. If you only do one thing to promote your business, go networking and carry yourself like the star that you are. That was chapter 4. Is this thing on? Part 7 of my award-winning book, Step into the Spotlight, A Guide to Getting Noticed. We ended on page 150 and we will continue it next time on page 151. In the meantime, if you want your own copy of Step into the Spotlights, you can see how to order it in the show notes. If you want a case of 20 to give to your employees, your friends, your clients, whomever, you can see that in the show notes as well. Until then, I'm Tsufit, and I will see you in the spotlight.